My cheating wife said, "Don't come to my office party. It'll be awkward with my ex-lover there." I said, "Of course, I'll stay home." What she didn't know was that I was the new regional manager her boss invited as a surprise guest. When I walked in and she saw who was sitting next to me, her face went pale. The kitchen was too quiet that morning. You know that kind of quiet. The one that pretends to be peaceful but hums with something unsaid, something carefully avoided. Sarah stood at the counter, her back to me, stirring her coffee in slow, deliberate circles. The spoon clinked against the ceramic mug with a rhythm that felt almost rehearsed. Outside, November rain drummed against the windows, turning the world beyond our brownstone into a watercolor blur of grays and browns. I was reading the newspaper, an actual printed newspaper, because some habits die hard, when she cleared her throat. "So," she began, her voice too light, too casual. "The office holiday party is next Friday." I looked up. She still hadn't turned around. "That's great," I said, matching her careful tone. "Should be fun. What time should I be ready?" The stirring stopped. "Actually," she set the spoon down with a soft clink. "I was thinking maybe you should sit this one out. If you've ever felt the ground shift beneath you while you're standing perfectly still, you know what that moment felt like. Not an earthquake. Just a subtle tilt, barely noticeable, but enough to make you question your balance. Sit it out." I kept my voice even, neutral, a skill I'd been practicing more than I cared to admit over the past 8 months. She finally turned, and I saw the expression I'd come to recognize, the one she wore when she'd already made a decision and was now simply managing my reaction to it. Her auburn hair was pulled back in that messy bun she always claimed was effortless, but actually took her 15 minutes to perfect. She was wearing my old college sweatshirt, the navy one with the faded logo, and for a moment I remembered when that meant something, when her wearing my clothes was intimacy, not just convenience. It's going to be mostly work people. Industry talk. You'd be bored." She picked up her mug, took a sip, watched me over the rim. "And honestly, David will be there." There it was. David. She said his name the way you might say taxes or dentist, something unavoidable and mildly unpleasant, but ultimately manageable. "Your ex," I said. "Not a question." "My colleague," she corrected too quickly. "Who happens to be my ex. From before we even met." Ancient history. Ancient history that she'd been texting at midnight. Ancient history whose name appeared on her phone screen more often than mine did. Ancient history who'd sent her flowers on her birthday with a card I wasn't supposed to see, but did, because I'd come home early and found them on the kitchen table before she'd had a chance to. What? Hide them? Explain them away? The card had said, "To new beginnings." When I'd asked about it, she'd laughed. Actually laughed. God, David's so dramatic. He's just being supportive about my promotion. The promotion she'd gotten 3 months ago. The promotion to Senior Marketing Director at Halstead & Morrison, one of the most prestigious consulting firms in the city. The promotion that came with longer hours, more travel, and apparently, more reasons to text her ex-boyfriend at hours when I was supposed to be asleep. I want to be clear about something. I'm not a suspicious person by nature. I'm an engineer. I work with facts, with systems, with things that can be measured and verified. I troubleshoot problems by gathering data, not by jumping to conclusions. For 8 years of marriage, I trusted Sarah completely, implicitly, the kind of trust that doesn't even think about itself, that simply exists like oxygen. But 8 months ago, something changed. It wasn't one thing. It was 1,000 small things, each one meaningless on its own, but together forming a pattern I couldn't ignore. The way she angled her phone away when texting, the new password on her laptop, the suddenly busy schedule that meant fewer dinners together, fewer conversations that went deeper than logistics. The way she'd started dressing differently for work, more carefully, more deliberately. And David, always David, hovering at the edges of our conversations like a ghost she couldn't quite banish. "It'll just be awkward," Sarah continued, pulling me back to the present. "With David there. I don't want to spend the whole night managing dynamics. You understand, right?" She smiled at me then. That smile I'd fallen in love with 11 years ago at a mutual friend's barbecue, when she'd been arguing passionately about urban planning policy, and I'd been captivated by the way her whole face lit up when she cared about something. That smile that used to mean I was in on the joke, that we were a team. Now it felt like a negotiation tactic. I understand, I said. And I did. Just not in the way she thought. Thank you. She set down her coffee and came around the counter, kissing the top of my head as she passed. You're the best. I'll make it up to you. Maybe we can do something nice that weekend, just the two of us. Sure, I said to her, retreating back as she headed upstairs to get ready for work. I sat there in the kitchen for a long time after she left, listening to the rain, watching the coffee in my mug grow cold. The newspaper lay forgotten on the table, the crossword puzzle half finished. I'd been stuck on 23 across, betrayal concealed. 7 letters. I didn't need the crossword to tell me the answer. The thing about betrayal is that it's rarely a single moment. It's a slow erosion, like water wearing away stone. You don't notice it happening until one day you look down and realize you're standing on nothing. I'd been noticing for months. The late-night work calls she took in the other room. The business trip to San Francisco, where her hotel's lobby bar somehow didn't appear on the credit card statement, but a nice restaurant in Sausalito did. And I knew for a fact her conference was downtown. The way she'd stopped asking about my day. The way sex had become something we scheduled and then canceled, rescheduled and canceled again, until it barely happened at all. And the lies. Small ones, mostly. Insignificant on their own. I'm having lunch with Rachel from HR. Working late on the Morrison account. Phone died. Sorry I missed your calls. Each one a tiny paper cut. Not enough to make you bleed, but enough to sting. I'm not proud of what I did next. Or maybe I am. I'm still sorting through how I feel about it. I hired an investigator. Her name was Patricia Chun, and she came highly recommended by a colleague who'd gone through his own divorce 2 years prior. Patricia was in her 50s, efficient and direct, with the kind of face that could blend into any crowd. We met at a coffee shop in a neighborhood where I was certain Sarah would never go. I'll be honest with you, Mr. Reynolds, Patricia said, stirring sweetener into her tea. 90% of the time, spouses who hire me either already know the truth and want confirmation, or they're wrong and the marriage has other problems. Which one do you think you are? I thought about that morning's conversation. About the flowers. About the way Sarah's eyes slid away from mine when she talked about David. The first one, I said. She nodded. Then let's confirm it. It took her 3 weeks. 3 weeks of surveillance photos, phone records, GPS tracking data. 3 weeks of me going to work, coming home, kissing my wife goodbye, pretending everything was normal while Patricia compiled evidence of everything that wasn't. The report arrived via encrypted email on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at my desk at Meridian Engineering, supposedly reviewing structural calculations for a bridge project in Portland, but I couldn't focus. Hadn't been able to focus since I'd gotten the text from Patricia that morning. Package ready for pickup. My hands shook slightly as I opened the attachment. There were photos. A lot of photos. Sarah and David at lunch. At dinner. Getting coffee. Walking through a park, his hand on the small of her back. Getting into his car. Getting out of his car 4 hours later, her hair messed, her blouse wrinkled. Entering a hotel. The Westbrook downtown. Room 847. I knew because Patricia had followed them up, had positioned herself in the hallway with a housekeeping cart, borrowed, she'd explained in her notes, had documented the time. 2:47 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon when Sarah had texted me saying she'd be in back-to-back meetings until 6. She emerged at 5:30. Hair perfect again. Fresh lipstick. David kissed her before they parted ways in the parking garage, his hands in her hair, her arms around his neck. The photos were time-stamped, geotagged, indisputable. But Patricia had given me more than photos. She'd given me context. David Morrison, 38. Stanford MBA. Vice President of Strategy at Halstead and Morrison, not just Sarah's ex, but her direct supervisor. Divorced, no kids. Lived in a loft in the warehouse district that cost more per month than most people's annual salary. Drove a Tesla. Ran marathons. Posted on LinkedIn about disruption and paradigm shifts and other corporate buzzwords that made my engineer's brain hurt. And he'd been sleeping with my wife for at least 6 months. Maybe longer. The report included phone records that showed texts dating back almost a year. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Patricia's analysis suggested the affair had started as an emotional connection, long conversations, shared confidences, and had turned physical sometime around March. March. Our wedding anniversary was in March. We'd gone to that restaurant on the waterfront, the expensive one with the tasting menu. Sarah had been on her phone through half of dinner. "Work crisis," she'd said apologetically. "You know how it is." I'd known how it was. I'd just been wrong about what it was. I sat in my office until the cleaning crew came through at 8 p.m. Then I drove home in the rain, parked in our driveway, looked up at the windows of the house we'd bought together 5 years ago with such hope, such excitement about our future. And I made a decision. Not the decision you might think. I didn't confront Sarah. I didn't print out the photos and leave them on the kitchen table. I didn't scream or throw things or demand explanations. I did something else. I planned. Because here's what I knew about Sarah. She was brilliant, ruthless when she needed to be, a strategist who thought 3 moves ahead. If I confronted her with evidence, she'd have an explanation ready. She'd apologize, maybe, cry probably, swear it meant nothing, that it was a mistake, that she'd end it. And maybe she would, for a while, until the next time. Or she'd turn it around somehow, make it about something I'd done wrong, some way I'd failed her. Because that's what people do when they're caught. They deflect, justify, minimize. I didn't want any of that. I wanted something else, something cleaner. I wanted the truth to be so obvious, so undeniable, so public that there would be no room for explanations or apologies or second chances. I wanted consequences. But mostly, I wanted her to feel what I'd been feeling for 8 months. That slow, creeping realization that everything you believed about your life was a carefully constructed fiction. So I waited. I watched. I played the part of the trusting husband while I built my case. And then, 2 weeks after I received Patricia's report, something happened that I couldn't have planned if I'd tried. I got a phone call. "Mr. Reynolds? This is Jennifer Wu from Halstead and Morrison." I was at my desk again, halfway through a conference call about load-bearing calculations, when my cell phone vibrated with an unfamiliar number. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail, but something made me step out of the meeting and answer. "This is he," I said, walking to the stairwell for privacy. "I'm calling from our HR department. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." My heart rate picked up. Had Sarah said something? Had she? "We've been trying to reach you for a few days, but I think our emails might have gone to your spam folder. I'm calling about a position we'd like to discuss with you." I stopped walking. "I'm sorry, what? A position? We're expanding our infrastructure consulting division, and your name came up through our executive search firm. Your work on the Cascade Bridge project and the Portland Metro expansion caught our attention. We'd love to talk to you about joining Halstead and Morrison as our new regional director of engineering services." The stairwell suddenly felt very small. I'm not currently looking for a position," I said carefully. "I understand. We're not asking you to make any commitments. But we'd love to have a conversation. The role is quite senior. You'd be overseeing a team of 15 engineers across 3 offices, managing our infrastructure portfolio for the entire Northwest region. The compensation package would be significant, and we think you'd be an excellent fit for our culture." She named a salary that was nearly double what I made at Meridian. "I see," I said, my mind racing. "And who would I be reporting to?" "You'd be reporting directly to Elizabeth Chun, our VP of Operations. She's relatively new to the company, started about 4 months ago, but she's been instrumental in reshaping our engineering division. She's actually the one who specifically requested we reach out to you." Elizabeth Chun. I knew that name. She'd been a senior director at Thornton Engineering before Halstead and Morrison poached her. We'd met at a conference in Seattle 2 years ago, had a fascinating conversation about sustainable design principles over terrible conference center coffee. "When would you like to meet?" Jennifer continued. "Elizabeth is very excited about the possibility of working with you." I thought about Sarah, home this morning, stirring her coffee, telling me to stay away from her office party because it would be awkward. I thought about David Morrison, vice president of strategy, who'd been fucking my wife in hotel rooms while I worked late trying to finish projects so I could be home for the dinners she kept canceling. I thought about consequences. "I'm available whenever works for Elizabeth," I said. The Halstead and Morrison offices occupied floors 20 through 25 of the Cascade Tower, one of those glass and steel monuments to corporate success that dominate the downtown skyline. I'd passed it 1,000 times, never imagining I'd walk through its doors as anything other than a visitor. Now I was walking through its lobby with a visitor badge clipped to my jacket, following Jennifer Wu toward the elevator bank, trying not to think about the fact that somewhere in this building, my wife was sitting at a desk, probably texting David about their next rendezvous. Elizabeth's office is on 24, Jennifer said as we rode up. She was younger than she'd sounded on the phone, maybe 30, with sharp eyes behind designer glasses. The engineering division is separate from the main consulting floors. It's actually a fairly autonomous operation. You'd have a lot of latitude in how you structure your team. The elevator doors opened onto a floor that looked nothing like the corporate sterility I'd expected. Exposed brick, industrial lighting, an open floor plan with actual plants that appeared to be alive. Engineers clustered around workstations, pointing at screens, debating something with the intensity one recognized from my own team at Meridian. Elizabeth Chin's office was in the corner, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of the city that probably cost more in rent than my entire house. She stood when I entered, extending her hand. "Michael, thank you for coming." Elizabeth was in her mid-40s, with silver streaking through her black hair that she wore short and unstyled. She had the kind of presence that filled a room, not through volume or aggression, but through absolute certainty about who she was. "I'll be honest," she said once we'd sat down, Jennifer excusing herself to let us talk. "I don't usually get this involved in recruiting, but when your name came across my desk, I told Jennifer I wanted to handle this personally." "I'm flattered," I said, "though I'll admit, I'm curious why. Because I've been following your career for a while. That bridge design you did for the Cascade project, the way you solved the seismic loading problem while keeping the aesthetic vision intact, that was elegant work. The kind of engineering that doesn't just solve problems, but creates possibilities." She pulled up something on her computer, turned the monitor so I could see. It was my LinkedIn profile, but marked up with notes, highlights, connections drawn between my various projects. "You're an engineer who thinks like a strategist," Elizabeth continued. "You see systems, not just components. That's rare, and it's exactly what we need to build the kind of infrastructure division I'm envisioning." We talked for an hour about her plans for the division, about projects on the horizon, about her philosophy of engineering leadership. She was impressive, direct, visionary, unafraid to challenge conventional thinking. By the time she started outlining the actual role, I'd almost forgotten why I was really there. Almost. "The position would make you one of the senior-most people in the company," Elizabeth said. "You'd have a seat at executive meetings, direct access to the C-suite. We're trying to integrate engineering thinking into our strategic consulting work, and you'd be the bridge between those worlds." "That sounds ambitious," I said. "It is, which is why I want someone who can handle complexity. Someone who can navigate difficult situations with intelligence and grace." She leaned back in her chair, studying me. "Can I ask you something personal?" My stomach tightened. "Of course. Are you married?" The question hung in the air between us. "I am," I said carefully. "Children?" "No." She nodded slowly. "The reason I ask is that this role will require some travel. Not excessive, but regular. And there will be times when work demands will be significant. I want to make sure that if you take this position, you're doing so with full awareness of what it requires, and that your family situation supports that." It was such a normal question, the kind of thing any employer might ask. But sitting there, in that office, knowing that somewhere in this building my wife was planning her future with another man, it felt like the universe offering me a choice. I could tell Elizabeth the truth, that my marriage was falling apart, that my wife worked here, was sleeping with her boss, and that taking this job would be complicated. Or I could lie. No, not lie. Simply not volunteer information that wasn't being directly asked. "My wife is very supportive of my career," I said, which was technically true. Sarah had always encouraged my work, just not recently, and not for reasons that had anything to do with me. "Good." Elizabeth smiled. "Then let's talk specifics." The offer was extraordinary. Not just the salary, but the equity package, the signing bonus, the relocation assistance if I wanted it, I didn't, the whole benefit structure. It was the kind of offer you don't refuse unless you're independently wealthy or insane. "I know this is a lot to process," Elizabeth said as we wrapped up. "Take some time. Talk to your wife. Talk to your current employer. Though I'll be honest, I hope you say yes. I think we could do something special here." I stood, shook her hand. "When would you need an answer?" "We're not rushing. But there is one thing. Our annual holiday party is coming up next Friday. It's a big event. Very formal. We usually announce major organizational changes there. If you're planning to say yes, it would be great timing. We could introduce you to the team, make it feel like a fresh start. My heart stopped. Next Friday. Sarah's office party. That party, I said slowly. Is it just for the consulting division or company-wide? Company-wide. Everyone from all divisions. It's actually the one event each year where engineering, consulting, operations, everyone mingles. What? I thought about Sarah this morning, telling me not to come. Telling me it would be awkward with David there. I thought about her face when I walked in as not a +1, but as a senior executive. As someone with rank and authority that would put me in the same stratosphere as David Morrison. I thought about consequences. Just curious, I said. I've heard it's quite an event. It is. Black tie, open bar, the works. We rent out the entire Cascade Ballroom at the Waterford Hotel. If you decide to join us, you'd be there as a guest of honor. She walked me to the door. Think about it, Michael. I really hope you'll say yes. I drove home in a daze. The rain had stopped, leaving the city washed clean and glittering in the late afternoon sun. Traffic was light for once, giving me too much time to think. What were the odds? What were the actual statistical odds that my wife's company would recruit me, would offer me a position senior enough to attend the same party she'd just disinvited me from? Would do so with perfect timing for me to walk in as her new colleague, superior, even in the organizational hierarchy. The engineer in me wanted to calculate the probability. The rest of me knew it didn't matter. This was happening. The question was what I was going to do about it. I could tell Sarah, right now, tonight. Walk in the door and say, funny thing happened today. Your company offered me a job. As regional director. I'd be at your level, maybe higher. Watch her face as she processed it. Watch the calculations happening behind her eyes. Would she be happy? Concerned? Panicked? Or I could say nothing. Take the job. Accept the invitation to the party. Walk in as a surprise and watch her world tilt on its axis the way mine had been tilting for 8 months. The vengeful part of me. The part one didn't know I had until recently, wanted the second option. Wanted to see her face when she realized I knew. Wanted David to see me standing there, not as the clueless husband, but as someone with power. But the engineer in me, the part that solved problems methodically, knew I needed more information. I needed to know how deep this went. How many people at Halstead and Morrison knew about Sarah and David? Whether this was the open secret it seemed to be, or something they'd actually managed to keep quiet. I needed to know if taking this job would be professional suicide or poetic justice. So I did what engineers do. I gathered more data. Patricia Chun answered on the second ring. Mr. Reynolds, I was wondering when I'd hear from you again. I need more information, I said. I was sitting in my car in the grocery store parking lot, putting off going home for another 20 minutes. About the relationship. Specifically, who knows about it at Halstead and Morrison? Corporate investigation? Her voice brightened with professional interest. That's a different scope. Different rates. I don't care about rates. Then I'll get started. Give me a few days. She called back in too. Your wife and David Morrison have been careful, Patricia said. No public displays at the office. No obvious favoritism in work assignments. Though her promotion to senior director did happen 6 weeks after their relationship turned physical, and he was on the approval committee. Is that unusual? Hard to say. She's qualified for the role. Good performance reviews going back years. But the timing is interesting. Anyway, here's what I found. Most people don't know. Or if they suspect, they're not talking about it. But there's a small group, maybe 4 or 5 people, who definitely know. David's executive assistant. A couple of Sarah's colleagues who've made comments about them being close. And someone in HR who processed an unusual request about 3 months ago. What kind of request? Policy waiver. Halstead and Morrison has rules about relationships between supervisors and direct reports. They're not forbidden, but they have to be disclosed to HR. David submitted a preemptive disclosure form asking about the hypothetical implications if he were in a relationship with someone in his division. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. He was planning to disclose it, or covering his bases in case someone found out. The HR rep apparently advised him that it would require restructuring the reporting lines, that Sarah would need to report to someone else to avoid conflict of interest issues. He never followed up with an actual disclosure. So either the relationship didn't happen, or he decided it was easier to keep it quiet. Or Sarah's promotion moved her high enough that they're not technically in a direct reporting relationship anymore. Also possible, she reports to the VP of marketing now, not to David directly, though he still has significant influence over her career trajectory. I processed this. Who in HR handled the inquiry? Jennifer Wu. The same Jennifer Wu who'd called me about the job, who'd shepherded me through the building, who'd coordinated my meeting with Elizabeth. Does Jennifer know about Sarah and David? I asked. Based on the documentation trail, yes. She's the one who would have flagged it if it became an official disclosure. But she's also discreet. It's literally her job to keep sensitive information confidential. Would she know I'm Sarah's husband? There was a pause. I don't know. Your last name is Reynolds. Sarah goes by Sarah Chun professionally, her maiden name. You're not connected on LinkedIn. If Jennifer didn't deep dive your background beyond your professional credentials, she might not have made the connection. Sarah Chun. She'd kept her name when we got married, which I'd supported completely. Her choice, her identity. But professionally, it meant we had no obvious connection unless someone specifically looked for it. Patricia, I said slowly. If I were to take a job at Halstead and Morrison, would that information be available to other employees? Depends on the level of the job. Senior positions usually get announced. New hires at lower levels might just show up in the company directory. And if my hire was being announced at the company holiday party? Another pause, longer this time. Then yes, everyone would know. It would be public, including my connection to Sarah. Including that, though again, only if someone made the connection between Reynolds and Sean. I sat with that for a moment, watching people come and go from the grocery store, living their normal lives with their normal problems. One more question, I said. Is there any evidence that this relationship has affected Sarah's work? That she's gotten opportunities or advancement because of David? Nothing definitive. But I talked to a former colleague of Sarah's, off the record, who said there's been some resentment. A feeling that Sarah gets preferential access to high-profile projects, that David advocates for her more strongly than for other directors. Could be because she's talented. Could be because they're sleeping together. Probably some of both. So if this relationship became public, it would be messy. At minimum, one of them would have to move to a different division. More likely, one of them would have to leave the company. These firms don't mess around with conflict of interest issues, especially when it involves executives. I thanked Patricia and ended the call. Then I sat in my car for another 30 minutes, watching the sun set behind the city skyline, thinking about systems and consequences and the elegant solution to a complex problem. Because here's what I'd realized. If I took the job at Halstead and Morrison, I wouldn't just be showing up at Sarah's office party as a surprise. I'd be creating a situation where her relationship with David couldn't stay hidden, where the truth would come out not because I exposed it, but because the system would force it into the light, where she'd have to choose between her career and her lover, knowing that either choice would cost her something. It was elegant, almost beautiful in its simplicity. All I had to do was say yes. I told Sarah I had to work late on Thursday. Big deadline on the Portland project, I said, which was true. What I didn't mention was that I'd already delegated most of my responsibilities, was planning to leave Meridian within the month, and was spending the evening at Halstead and Morrison finalizing my employment contract. That's fine, Sarah said, barely looking up from her laptop. She was working from home today, camped out at the dining room table with spreadsheets and strategy documents scattered around her. I have a ton of prep work for the party tomorrow anyway. The party. Her party. The one I wasn't invited to. You're really looking forward to it, I said. Not a question. It's a big deal. She glanced up then, her eyes bright with the kind of excitement I hadn't seen in months. The whole leadership team will be there, even the board members. It's a huge networking opportunity. Will David be there? I asked, keeping my voice casual. Something flickered across her face. Of course. He's a VP, right? I grabbed my jacket. Well, have fun. I'll probably be home late. She was already back to her laptop. Okay, love you. The words were automatic. Reflexive. The kind of thing you say because you've always said it, not because you mean it. Love you too, I said and left. Elizabeth Chen's office looked different in the evening. The city lights stretched out beyond her windows like a carpet of stars, and the building had that after-hours hush that comes when the ambitious people stay late and everyone else has gone home to their families. Michael. She stood, shook my hand. Thank you for coming back. Jennifer Wu was there too, with a stack of documents that looked intimidatingly official. We've prepared everything, she said. Once you sign, we can start the onboarding process. Background check, references, all the standard procedures. Though given your profile, Elizabeth added, I don't anticipate any issues. We've already done our preliminary due diligence. I wondered if that due diligence had included discovering I was married to Sarah Chun. I wondered if Elizabeth knew, and this was some kind of test, or if she didn't know, and was about to be as surprised as everyone else. Before I sign, I said, I need to tell you something. Elizabeth's expression didn't change, but I saw her attention sharpen. Of course. My wife works here, at Halstead and Morrison. Jennifer's pen stopped moving. Elizabeth leaned back in her chair, her face unreadable. I see, Elizabeth said slowly. May I ask who? Sarah Chun. She's a senior director in marketing. There was a moment of absolute silence. Then Elizabeth said, Sarah Chun is your wife. She is. And you're just mentioning this now, because I needed to think about whether taking this job was the right decision. For me. For my career. Independent of her. It was a good answer. Professional. Reasonable. Elizabeth studied me for a long moment. Does Sarah know you've been interviewing with us? No. Are you planning to tell her before the party tomorrow? I wasn't planning to, no. Another silence. Jennifer looked like she wanted to say something, but Elizabeth held up a hand. Let me make sure I understand, Elizabeth said. You've accepted a senior position at the company where your wife works. You haven't told her, and you're planning to have your first day, in effect, be at our holiday party, where she'll discover you're now her colleague. Her superior, technically, since regional director is a higher organizational level than senior director. When she put it like that, it sounded insane. Is there a problem? I asked. That depends. Is there a problem with your marriage? I could have lied. Could have said everything was fine, that Sarah would be thrilled, that this was a happy surprise. But I was tired of lying. Even lies of omission. My marriage is ending, I said. She doesn't know that yet. But it is. Jennifer looked at Elizabeth. Elizabeth looked at me. I see, Elizabeth said again. And this job, are you taking it as some kind of revenge? No, that was true. Mostly. I'm taking it because it's an incredible opportunity. Because I respect the work you're doing here. Because the offer is generous and the role is challenging, and I think I can excel at it. I paused. The fact that my wife will be surprised to see me at the party is a side benefit. A side benefit, Elizabeth repeated, her tone dry. Look, I said, I understand if this changes things. If you want to withdraw the offer, I'll understand. But I want to be clear. I'm not doing this to sabotage Sarah's career. I'm doing this for mine. And if she has a problem with that, we'll deal with it privately. Elizabeth tapped her fingers on her desk, thinking, does Sarah know you're unhappy? She should. I haven't exactly been subtle about it. But you haven't confronted her. Haven't asked for counseling or separation or divorce. Not yet. Why not? It was a fair question. Why hadn't I? Why had I spent 8 months gathering evidence, documenting betrayal, building a case, instead of just asking my wife what the hell was going on? Because, I said slowly, I needed to be sure. And I needed to be ready. Confronting her before I had a plan felt like walking into a negotiation with no leverage. And now you have leverage. Now I have options. Elizabeth was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Jennifer, would you give us a moment? Jennifer gathered her documents and left, closing the door behind her. I'm going to be very direct with you, Elizabeth said once we were alone. I like you. I think you're talented, and I genuinely believe you'd be excellent in this role. But I need to know that you're not going to bring personal drama into my engineering division. I won't. Because if you take this job and it becomes a problem, if there are HR issues, or if your marital situation creates workplace conflict, that reflects on me. I brought you in. I advocated for you. I told the executive team you were worth the significant investment we're making. I understand. Do you? Because I've built my career on being able to read people. And right now, I'm reading someone who's angry and hurt and looking for a way to reclaim power. That's not necessarily wrong, but it's also not necessarily compatible with being a senior leader at a company where your wife works. She wasn't wrong about any of it. You want to know if I can be professional? I said. I want to know if you can be effective. If you take this job and you're distracted by personal issues, if you're focused on your wife instead of your work, then you're not going to succeed. And more importantly, you're going to undermine the division I'm trying to build. I won't, I said again. My marriage is over. I've accepted that. What I haven't accepted is being passive about my career, my future, my life. This job is a step toward building something new. If Sarah has a problem with that, it's her problem, not mine. Not yours. Elizabeth studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. All right, I'm trusting you on this. But Michael, if it becomes a problem, we'll have to address it. Quickly and decisively. I understand. Good. She pulled the contract toward me. Then let's make this official. I signed. Jennifer came back in, witnessed the signature, collected the documents. We talked logistics, start date, transition planning, announcement strategy for tomorrow's party. We'll introduce you during the executive remarks, Elizabeth explained. It's usually about 90 minutes into the event, after dinner. I'll say a few words about the infrastructure division's growth, then bring you up. You'll say something brief. Who you are, where you came from, what you're excited about. Keep it under 3 minutes. And Sarah? We'll find out when everyone else does. Elizabeth's expression was unreadable. Is that what you want? It was exactly what I wanted. Yes, I said. I got home at 11. Sarah was already asleep, or pretending to be. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom for a moment, watching her breathe, thinking about all the nights I'd stood exactly here, loving her, trusting her, believing in us. I thought about how many of those nights she'd been thinking about David. Then I went to the guest room and started packing. Not everything, just enough for a few weeks. Some clothes, toiletries, my laptop. I'd been preparing for this moment without quite admitting it to myself, transferring money to a separate account, gathering important documents, making sure I had copies of everything I might need. By the time I finished, it was after midnight. I lay in the guest bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about tomorrow, thinking about consequences. Friday dawned cold and clear. I woke early, before Sarah, and went for a run through the neighborhood. Our neighborhood. The streets we'd walked together 1,000 times, pointing out houses we liked, planning our future, talking about maybe buying something bigger when we finally had kids. We'd stopped talking about kids about 2 years ago. At the time, I thought it was just because we were both busy, focused on our careers. Now I wondered if Sarah had stopped bringing it up because she was already planning an exit, or maybe she just didn't want kids with me. I ran harder, pushing until my lungs burned and my legs ached, and I couldn't think about anything except the physical effort of moving forward. When I got back, Sarah was in the kitchen, making coffee. She was wearing her bathrobe, her hair still messy from sleep, and for a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married. Unguarded. Real. Morning, she said. You're up early. Couldn't sleep. Nervous about the Portland deadline? It took me a moment to remember the lie I'd told. Something like that. She poured me coffee without asking, added cream the way I liked it, handed me the mug. It was such a small gesture. Such a normal thing. For a moment, I almost weakened, almost said something. But then her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it, and I saw her expression change. Just slightly, just enough, and I knew who was texting her. I should get ready, she said, picking up her phone. Hair appointment at 10, then I need to pick up my dress from the cleaners. Big preparations for tonight. Well, it's an important event. She smiled at me over her coffee mug. You'll be okay here? Pizza and Netflix, or whatever. I'll manage. She kissed my cheek as she passed. You're the best. I'll try not to be too late. After she left for her hair appointment, I went through the house one more time, looking at the photos on the walls, our wedding, vacations, holidays with family. Looking at the furniture we'd picked out together, the art we'd bought at a street fair in Portland, the books on the shelves that were half mine and half hers, all mixed together like we'd thought we'd be forever. I wasn't sad. I was past sad. I was just done. I packed the rest of my essentials. Then I called my brother. Hey, Ryan answered. What's up? Can I ask you a hypothetical question? Sure. I heard kids yelling in the background. Ryan had 3 of them, all under 10. His life was chaos, but it was the kind of chaos that came from too much love, not too little. Wait, let me go outside. Hold on. A door closed. The noise faded. Okay, Ryan said. What's going on? If I told you Sarah's been having an affair for at least 6 months, what would you say? Silence. Then, shit. Are you serious? I'm serious. Do you have proof? Photos, phone records, hotel receipts. Enough to fill a file folder. Shit, Ryan said again. Michael, I'm so sorry. What are you going to do? Tonight, Sarah's company is having their holiday party. She asked me not to come because it would be awkward with her ex-boyfriend there. What she doesn't know is that I accepted a job at her company 2 days ago. As a regional director, I'm being announced at the party tonight. There was a longer silence. Then Ryan started laughing. Not cruel laughter. Not mean. Just the kind of laughter that comes from shock mixed with disbelief, mixed with the recognition that sometimes reality is stranger than any revenge plot you could dream up. Holy shit, he said when he could speak again. Michael, is that even real? That's actually happening. In about 8 hours. What's Sarah going to do when she sees you? I have no idea. What are you going to do? Give a 3-minute speech about infrastructure development and then let the chips fall where they may. Ryan laughed again. Then he got serious. Are you okay? Like, actually okay? Was I? I'm furious, I said. I'm hurt. I feel like an idiot for not seeing it sooner. But yeah, I'm okay. Or I will be. You need a place to stay? I've got a hotel room booked. Just for a few days while I figure out next steps. The offer stands. Emma and I have space. The kids would love to see you. Thanks, Ree. I might take you up on that soon. But tonight, I need to be alone. Okay, but call me after. I want to know how this plays out. I will. And Michael? For what it's worth, fuck her. You deserve better. After we hung up, I sat in my car in the driveway for a while, watching the house. Our house. The home we'd built together. By tomorrow, everything would be different. The Waterford Hotel was one of those old, elegant buildings downtown that had been renovated within an inch of its life, while somehow maintaining its historic charm. The Cascade Ballroom occupied the entire second floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river and a ceiling painted with murals that probably cost more than my annual salary. I arrived at 7, wearing the tuxedo I'd bought specifically for tonight. It felt like armor. Elizabeth met me in the lobby. She was wearing a deep green dress, elegant and understated, her hair styled in a way that made her look simultaneously professional and formidable. You clean up well, she said appraisingly. Thank you. How are you feeling? Like I'm about to give the most important presentation of my career. She smiled. In a sense, you are? The executive team is excited to meet you. The engineering division is excited to have new leadership. And everyone else is about to learn that we're serious about integrating engineering into our strategic work. We took the elevator up together. As the doors opened onto the ballroom, I heard music, laughter, the sound of a couple hundred people enjoying themselves. Your wife? Elizabeth said quietly. Do you know where she is? No. Do you want to know? I thought about that. Not yet. All right. Then stay close to me until we make the announcement. I don't want you two having an unscripted interaction before we're ready. The ballroom was spectacular. Round tables draped in white linens, centerpieces of winter flowers, a string quartet in the corner playing something classical. The bar was open, and people were taking advantage of it. I recognized faces from my interview days, engineers I'd be working with, executives I'd been introduced to. And somewhere in this room was Sarah. I scanned the crowd carefully, trying to spot her without being obvious about it. Elizabeth steered me toward a group of engineering leads, made introductions, kept me occupied with shop talk about projects and timelines. But my attention was divided. I was looking for auburn hair, for a woman in a dress that she'd probably spent hours choosing, for my wife, who thought she was safe here, in her world, far from me. And then I saw her. She was near the windows, laughing at something someone had said. Her dress was black, elegant, cut to show her back. She looked beautiful. She looked happy. David Morrison was standing next to her. He was exactly what I'd expected from Patricia's photos. Tall, well-built, that kind of effortless handsomeness that probably made everything in his life easier. Expensive suit. Expensive watch. Hand on the small of Sarah's back in a way that was just barely appropriate for colleagues, but clearly meant something more. As I watched, he leaned in to whisper something in her ear. She laughed, touched his arm, looked up at him with an expression I recognized because she used to look at me that way. Something cold settled in my chest. That's them, Elizabeth said quietly. She'd followed my gaze. That's them. How do you feel? Like a problem that's about to solve itself. She studied me for a moment, then nodded. Good. Because we're on in 20 minutes. Those 20 minutes lasted both an eternity and no time at all. I shook hands with people whose names I immediately forgot. Made small talk about the Portland project, about my background, about my plans for the engineering division. Sipped champagne I didn't taste. Kept Sarah in my peripheral vision, watching her work the room with David at her side. They were good together. I could see why people might not suspect an affair. They maintained just enough distance to seem professional. Didn't touch too often. Didn't gaze at each other too long. But I knew what to look for. The way he got her drinks without asking what she wanted. The way she angled her body toward his. The way they moved through the crowd like a unit, like they'd rehearsed this. Maybe they had. At 8:30, the lights dimmed slightly. The string quartet finished their piece and fell silent. A podium had been set up at the front of the room, and the CEO of Halstead and Morrison, a silver-haired man named Robert Halstead, stepped up to it. Good evening, everyone, he began. Thank you all for being here tonight. The standard corporate speech. Thanks for your hard work. We've had an incredible year. Looking forward to the future. Blah, blah, blah. I stopped listening. My attention was fixed on Sarah, who was standing near the center of the room with David, about 40 feet away from me. She was paying attention to the speech, nodding at appropriate moments, looking every bit the engaged professional. She hadn't seen me yet. And speaking of the future, Halstead was saying, I want to turn things over to Elizabeth Chun, our VP of Operations, who has some exciting news to share about our engineering division. Elizabeth walked to the podium with that same certainty she brought to everything. She didn't use notes. Thank you, Robert. As many of you know, we've been working to expand and elevate our infrastructure consulting practice. Engineering has always been the backbone of what we do at Halstead and Morrison, but we've historically treated it as a support function rather than a strategic one. That's changing. She talked about vision, about integrating engineering thinking into every level of the firm's work, about attracting top talent and building something industry-leading. To that end, she continued, I'm thrilled to announce that we've recruited someone exceptional to lead this transformation as our new Regional Director of Engineering Services. My heart was pounding. Sarah was still listening, still oblivious. David's hand now resting more obviously on her lower back. He comes to us from Meridian Engineering, where he led the team that designed the award-winning Cascade Bridge. His work combines technical excellence with strategic vision, and I believe he's going to help us redefine what an engineering consultancy can be. Elizabeth paused, let the anticipation build. Please join me in welcoming Michael Reynolds to the Halstead and Morrison family. She extended her hand toward me. I walked to the podium, and I watched Sarah's face as she realized who she was looking at. Have you ever seen someone's entire reality collapse in real time? It's not dramatic like in movies. There's no screaming, no fainting, no theatrics. It's subtle, a slight widening of the eyes, a sudden stillness that comes from the body's involuntary freeze response, a barely perceptible shift in posture as the brain tries to process information that doesn't make sense. Sarah went through all of it in the space of about 2 seconds. I saw the moment she registered my face. Saw confusion flicker across her features. What are you doing here? Then recognition. Oh God. Then calculation. What does this mean? Then, finally, something that might have been fear. Next to her, David was still clapping politely, oblivious. He hadn't made the connection yet. Hadn't realized that the new regional director was married to the woman he was sleeping with. I reached the podium. Elizabeth shook my hand, squeezed it once, a gesture that might have been encouragement or warning. Then she stepped aside. The room was full of faces. A couple hundred people, most of whom I didn't know. But I only cared about 2 of them. Thank you, Elizabeth, I said into the microphone. My voice was steady, calm, professional. And thank you all for the warm welcome. I'd prepared remarks. 3 minutes about my background, my vision for the engineering division, my excitement about joining the team. I'd written them out, practiced them, knew them by heart. I gave those remarks exactly as planned. I talked about the Cascade Bridge project and the challenges of designing for seismic resilience. I talked about the importance of sustainable infrastructure. I talked about my belief that the best engineering comes from collaboration between technical expertise and strategic thinking. I didn't look at Sarah, didn't acknowledge her, didn't deviate from the script. Because that's the thing about revenge. The most effective kind is the kind that doesn't look like revenge at all. It just looks like someone living their life, making their choices, pursuing their success. If I'd called Sarah out, made a scene, turned this into a confrontation, I'd have been the villain. The bitter husband causing drama at a professional event. Instead, I was just a talented engineer who'd been recruited for an exciting role. Nothing personal, just business. I'm looking forward to getting to know all of you, I concluded. To learning about the incredible work you're doing here, and to building something special together. Thank you. The room applauded. Elizabeth returned to the podium, made a few closing remarks, and then the music started up again and people returned to their conversations. I stepped down from the podium directly into a crowd of congratulations. Engineers from the division, shaking my hand, welcoming me to the team. Executives introducing themselves, talking about collaboration opportunities. Jennifer Wu appearing with a glass of champagne and a knowing look that suggested she'd figured out exactly what was happening here. I kept one eye on Sarah. She'd gone pale. David was saying something to her, but she wasn't responding. She was staring at me, and even from 40 feet away, I could see her mind racing. Then David followed her gaze. I saw the moment he made the connection. Saw him say something, probably what's wrong. Saw Sarah lean in, whisper something back. Saw David's expression change from confusion to something harder. He looked at me, really looked at me, sizing me up, calculating. I smiled, raised my champagne glass in a slight toast. He didn't return it. Michael, Elizabeth said at my elbow. There's someone I'd like you to meet. She guided me away, introducing me to the CFO, then the head of business development, then a senior partner whose name I didn't catch. I played the part perfectly, engaged, interested, professional. But I was tracking Sarah and David in my peripheral vision. They were having an intense, quiet conversation near the windows. Sarah's body language was defensive. David's was angry. This wasn't the conversation of casual colleagues or even close friends. This was the conversation of two people whose secret was no longer secret. After about 10 minutes, David walked away, headed toward the bar, got another drink, positioned himself on the opposite side of the room from Sarah. And Sarah started making her way toward me. I saw her coming. Elizabeth saw it too. That's your wife? She said quietly. It is. Do you want me to run interference? No. Let her come. Sarah navigated the crowd with practiced grace, smiling at people she knew, pausing for brief exchanges, all while maintaining a trajectory that would bring her directly to me. She'd always been good at this, at working a room, at projecting confidence and control even when she didn't feel it. By the time she reached me, her expression was perfectly composed. If I didn't know her as well as I did, I might have missed the tightness around her eyes, the slightly forced quality of her smile. Michael, she said, this is a surprise. Sarah, you look beautiful. It was the right thing to say, the expected thing. But I saw it land wrong. Saw her trying to figure out if I meant it, if I knew what game we were playing. I didn't know you'd be here, she said. I didn't know I would be either. Until recently, Elizabeth had discreetly moved away, giving us space but staying close enough to intervene if needed. You took a job here, Sarah said. At my company. Our company now. And you didn't tell me. You didn't tell me I shouldn't come to the party tonight. Her eyes narrowed slightly. What? You said it would be awkward. With David here. I took a sip of champagne. You were right. It is awkward. I saw the calculation happening behind her eyes, trying to figure out how much I knew, how much I'd guessed, whether this was confrontation or coincidence. Michael, she said carefully, we should probably talk. But not here. Why not here? This is a professional event. We're colleagues now. What could be more appropriate than getting to know each other in a professional context? You're being professional? Yes, I am. Her jaw tightened. This is a conversation we should have in private. I disagree. I think we should have this conversation right here, right now, in front of all your colleagues. In front of David. I said his name deliberately. Watched her react. I don't know what you think you know, she said, her voice low. I know you've been sleeping with your boss for 6 months. I know you meet him at the Westbrook Hotel on Wednesday afternoons when you tell me you're in meetings. I know he sent you flowers for your birthday with a card about new beginnings. I know he filed an inquiry with HR about relationship disclosure policies 3 months ago. Should I continue? All the color drained from Sarah's face. How? How do I know? Because I'm not an idiot, Sarah. I'm an engineer. I solve problems by gathering data. And I've been gathering data on you for a while now. People around us were starting to notice. Not obviously, no one was staring, but there were glances. The kind of awareness that comes when you sense tension in a room. We can't do this here, Sarah said. Her voice was shaking now. Why not? You didn't have any problem bringing your personal life to the office. Why shouldn't I? Because, she stopped. Started again. Because I'm asking you not to. That's interesting. You know what I asked you not to do? I asked you not to cheat on me. How did that work out? A few heads turned. More obviously this time. Sarah's eyes were wide now, panicked. Michael, please. And there it was. The plea. The vulnerability. The first crack in the carefully constructed facade. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Here's what's going to happen, I said quietly. You're going to go home. You're going to pack a bag. And you're going to leave. I don't care where you go. To David's place. To a hotel. To your mother's. But you're not staying in our house tonight. You can't. I can. It's my house too. And if you refuse, I'll make this conversation a lot more public. I'll tell everyone here exactly what you've been doing. How long it's been going on. What it says about your professional judgment to sleep with your direct supervisor. I don't report to David anymore. No, but you did when you started fucking him. And you got promoted shortly after. I'm sure HR would be very interested in that timeline. I'm sure the executive team would be too. Sarah stared at me like she'd never seen me before. Maybe she hadn't. Maybe I'd been hiding who I really was just as much as she'd been hiding who she was. I didn't mean for this to happen, she whispered. Yes, you did. You made choices. Every single time you lied to me. Every time you met him. Every time you came home and pretended everything was fine. Those were choices. I do love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of me. The stable husband who doesn't ask questions. Who works late so you can meet your lover. Who believes your excuses because he wants to believe the best of you. Tears were starting to form in her eyes. Real ones, probably. Michael, go home, Sarah. Pack your things. Leave your key on the counter. We'll figure out the rest later. What about us? There is no us. Not anymore. I turned away from her then, walked back toward Elizabeth, who was watching the whole scene with an expression I couldn't quite read. Everything okay? Elizabeth asked. Everything's fine. Just having a conversation with my soon-to-be ex-wife about professional boundaries. Behind me, I heard Sarah make a small sound that might have been a sob. Then footsteps. Then the sound of the ballroom door opening and closing. She was gone. I drained my champagne glass. That was brutal, Elizabeth said quietly. That was necessary. Are you okay? Was I? I thought about 8 months of lies. Of evidence gathering. Of slowly realizing that the person I loved most in the world had been systematically betraying me while I pretended not to notice. I thought about how I'd felt this morning, packing my things, knowing I was walking into this moment. And I thought about how I felt now, standing in a ballroom full of strangers who were about to become colleagues, with my marriage officially ended and my career officially beginning. Yeah, I said. I'm okay. David Morrison found me about 30 minutes later. I was talking to a structural engineer named Marcus about load distribution and high-rise construction when I felt someone at my shoulder. Turned. Found myself face to face with my wife's lover. Up close. He was even more what I'd expected. That kind of cultivated perfection that comes from money and privilege and never being told no. His tuxedo probably cost more than my car payment. His haircut probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. Reynolds, he said. His voice was sharp. Angry. We need to talk. I don't think we do. I think we do. Outside. Marcus looked between us, clearly sensing trouble. Michael, do you? It's fine, I said. 5 minutes. David was already walking toward the exit. I followed him out into the hallway, past the bathrooms, toward a quiet corner near the service elevators. As soon as we were alone, he turned on me. What the fuck was that? What was what? Don't play dumb. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That scene with Sarah. Making her cry at a company event. I made her cry? That's interesting. Because from where I'm standing, you're the one who fucked my wife for 6 months. His jaw tightened. That's between Sarah and me. Actually, it's between Sarah and me. You're just the guy she was cheating with. You don't know anything about our relationship. I know you're her boss. I know she reports to you, or did until recently. I know that's a violation of about 6 different company policies. She doesn't report to me anymore. But she did when you started sleeping together. That's what matters. That's what HR will care about when I file a formal complaint. David's expression shifted. Calculation replacing anger. You wouldn't. Why wouldn't I? Because it would hurt Sarah's career. And she didn't seem too concerned about our marriage when she was meeting you at hotels on Wednesday afternoons. That's different. How? Because he stopped. Started again. Look, what happened between Sarah and me? It wasn't planned. It just developed. Organically. Organically. Right. Like mold. We have a connection. Something real. You have an affair. Based on lies and sneaking around. That's not a connection. That's a liability. David took a step closer. He had a few inches on me, probably 20 pounds. I wondered if he was the type to get physical. If he was that stupid. Stay away from Sarah, he said. I plan to. That's the whole point. In fact, I'd recommend you do the same. That's not your decision to make. Actually, it kind of is. Because if you continue your relationship with Sarah while she's still legally married to me, that's evidence I can use in divorce proceedings. It strengthens my position. Makes it harder for her to claim anything about the marriage being my fault. She's not going to divorce you for fault. This isn't the 1950s. Maybe not. But it doesn't look good, does it? The optics. Senior director having an affair with her VP. Both of them married. Oh, did I mention you're married? I did my research, David. Wife named Jennifer, 2 kids in private school. I wonder how she'd feel about your organic connection with Sarah. His face went completely white. You wouldn't, he said again, but there was less certainty in it now. Wouldn't I? You don't know me, David. You don't know what I'm capable of. You just know I'm the boring husband who was easy to fool. I didn't. Yes, you did. You both did. You made assumptions about me. That I was too trusting, too naive, too focused on my work to notice what was happening. And you know what? You were right. For a while. But that time is over. I took a step closer to him now, closing the distance he'd created. Here's how this is going to work, I said quietly. You're going to end your relationship with Sarah. Today. Right now. You're going to tell her it's over, that it was a mistake, whatever you need to say. And then you're going to stay away from her professionally as much as possible. Transfer her to a different division if you have to. I don't care. But you're not going to continue this, and you're not going to let it affect her career. Or what? Or I go to HR. To Elizabeth. To the executive team. To your wife. And I let everyone know exactly what kind of man you are. The kind who takes advantage of his professional authority to sleep with his subordinates. The kind who jeopardizes the company's reputation by violating conflict of interest policies. The kind who destroys marriages, his own and other people's, because he can't keep it in his pants. David was breathing hard now, his hands clenched at his sides. You're blackmailing me. I'm giving you a choice. End it cleanly, or have it ended for you messily. Your call. For a long moment, we stood there, 2 men in tuxedos in a hotel hallway, the sounds of the party drifting through the walls. Then David said, She loves me. Maybe she does. That's between the 2 of you. But she made her choice when she married me, and she made another choice when she cheated. Now she gets to live with the consequences. You're an asshole. I'm a husband who's been lied to for 6 months. What did you expect? Understanding? Forgiveness? Common decency? I laughed. Actually laughed. Common decency. That's rich. Coming from a man who was fucking someone else's wife while his own wife was at home with their kids. Tell me, David, where was your common decency? He didn't have an answer for that. Here's the thing, I continued. I don't hate you. I don't even care about you. You're just a symptom of a bigger problem, which is that Sarah checked out of our marriage a long time ago and didn't have the courage to tell me. You were just convenient. If it wasn't you, it would have been someone else. That's not true, isn't it? You really think you're special? That this is some grand romance? You're a midlife crisis with a VP title. That's all. His face flushed with anger. You don't know anything about what we have. I know enough. I know it started as texts and lunch meetings. I know it escalated to hotels and lies. I know she wears perfume for you that she doesn't wear for me. I know you send her flowers and whisper things in her ear at office parties. I know all of it, David. Every detail. How? Because I hired someone to follow her. Because I documented everything. Because I'm not some clueless victim. I'm someone who recognized a pattern and investigated it. David looked like I'd hit him. You hired a private investigator? I did. Very thorough one, too. Photos, timestamps, GPS data. I could show you the file if you want. It's quite comprehensive. That's insane. That's evidence. And if you don't do what I'm asking, if you don't end this relationship and maintain a professional distance from Sarah, I'll use every bit of it. Against both of you. David ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, disturbing it for the first time all evening. He looked older suddenly. Tired. She's going to hate you for this, he said. She probably already does. I'm okay with that. You're really going to throw away your marriage over this? I'm not the one who threw it away. Sarah did that. I'm just refusing to pretend anymore. David was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, fine, I'll end it. But not because of your threats. Because you're right. She deserves better than sneaking around. We both do. Noble of you. Fuck you, Reynolds. Probably what Sarah said to you many times. Past tense now. He looked like he wanted to hit me. His hands clenched. His jaw worked. But he didn't. Instead, he turned and walked away, his expensive shoes clicking on the marble floor. I stood there alone in the hallway for a moment, feeling the adrenaline start to fade, leaving exhaustion in its wake. Then I went back to the party. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I talked to more people whose names I immediately forgot, made more small talk about engineering philosophy and project management, smiled until my face hurt. Elizabeth checked in on me twice. You're handling this remarkably well, she said the second time. Am I? Because I feel like I'm about to come apart at the seams. That's normal. You're processing a lot right now. But from the outside, you look composed. Professional. Like someone who can handle complexity and pressure. Is that what I look like? That's what you need to look like. At least until you get out of here. She squeezed my shoulder. Go home, Michael. Get some sleep. We'll talk Monday about your transition plan. I didn't go home. I went to the hotel room I'd booked 3 days ago, anticipating this exact scenario. It was anonymous, bland furniture, beige carpet, a view of the parking lot. But it was mine. I sat on the bed, still in my tuxedo, and finally let myself feel everything I'd been holding back all night. The anger, the hurt, the strange, hollow victory of winning a confrontation I'd never wanted to have. I thought about Sarah, probably at David's place right now, crying, trying to figure out what happened to her carefully managed life. I thought about David, realizing that his affair had just become exponentially more complicated. I thought about our house, empty tonight, full of all the things we'd accumulated together. Furniture and dishes and books and memories that didn't mean anything anymore. And I thought about Monday, when I'd walk into Halstead and Morrison as a regional director, and Sarah would have to face me not as her betrayed husband, but as her colleague, her superior. It was elegant, clean, a solution that addressed the problem without destroying myself in the process. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like loss. I woke to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Most were from Sarah, progressively more desperate as the night went on. Michael, please. We need to talk. I know you're angry, but this isn't fair. You can't just shut me out. I'm still your wife. Where are you? Please answer me. I went to David's. He broke up with me. He said you threatened him. Did you really hire an investigator? How long have you known? Why didn't you say something? I deserve answers too. That last one made me laugh. A bitter, exhausted laugh. She deserved answers. There were also 3 messages from David, which I deleted without reading. 2 from my brother Ryan asking if I was okay. And 1 from Elizabeth. Take the weekend. See you Monday. I lay in the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what I felt. Relief, mostly. That it was over. That I didn't have to pretend anymore. Didn't have to gather evidence or watch my wife lie to my face. But also grief. For the marriage we'd had, or thought we'd had. For the future we'd planned that would never happen now. For the person I'd been before I'd learned to doubt everything. My phone rang. Sarah again. I answered. Michael. Her voice was raw. She'd been crying. Thank you for picking up. What do you want, Sarah? I want to talk. To explain. There's nothing to explain. You cheated. I found out. That's the whole story. It's not that simple. It is, actually. You made choices. Now you're dealing with consequences. You ambushed me. At my office party. In front of everyone. I took a job. At a company that made me a good offer. That's not an ambush. That's a career decision. You know that's not what I mean. You planned this. You wanted to humiliate me. I wanted you to understand what it feels like. To have your reality shift without warning. To realize that someone you trusted has been lying to you. So this was revenge. This was honesty. Finally, silence on the line. Then, when did you know? Does it matter? Yes, it matters to me. I thought about telling her everything. About Patricia and the file folder full of evidence. About the months of watching her lie. About the slow erosion of trust that had happened so gradually I almost didn't notice until it was gone completely. I knew for sure 8 months ago, I said, when your behavior changed. When David's name started appearing everywhere. When you stopped looking at me like you loved me. That's not. Don't lie anymore. You're bad at it, Sarah. You always were. I just chose not to notice. Another silence. I did love you, she said finally. I do love you. Past tense is probably more accurate. Michael. Sarah, I need you to understand something. I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing this because I can't be married to someone who would do this to me. Who would lie to my face for 6 months while sleeping with someone else. Who would tell me not to come to a party because it would be awkward with her lover there. I know I fucked up. I know I should have told you. Should have ended things with you before I started anything with David. But I was scared. I didn't know how to. How to what? How to be honest. How to treat me with basic respect. How to not fuck your boss. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Sarah. That's the point. I could hear her breathing on the other end. Ragged. Trying to compose herself. What happens now? She asked. Now you find somewhere else to live. We file for divorce. We split our assets. We move on. Just like that. Just like that. What about the house? I'll buy you out. Or we'll sell it and split the proceeds. I don't care. Michael, please. Can we at least try counseling? Try to work through this. No. Why not? Because I don't want to. Because the moment I found out what you were doing, something broke. And I don't think it can be fixed. I don't think I want it to be fixed. So you've just decided, on your own, that we're done. You decided that 6 months ago when you started sleeping with David. I'm just catching up. She was crying again. Real sobs this time, the kind that probably hurt. Part of me wanted to comfort her. The part that had loved her for 11 years, had promised to be there through sickness and health, had meant those vows even when she apparently didn't. But I couldn't, because comforting her would mean pretending this was something we could fix, something we should fix. And I knew, with the kind of certainty that comes from finally seeing clearly, that it wasn't. I need to go, I said. Wait, please. One more question. What? The job at Halstead and Morrison. Are you going to take it? Or was it just a way to get back at me? I hadn't actually thought about that. Hadn't considered that I might not take the job now that I'd made my point. But even as she asked the question, I knew the answer. I'm taking it. It's a good job. Exactly the kind of opportunity I've been working toward my whole career. Why would I turn it down? Because I work there. Because it will be impossible to avoid each other. Then one of us will have to leave. And since I'm more senior, I'm guessing it will be you. You can't. I can. You're the one who had an affair with your superior. You're the one who violated company policy. If it comes down to who's more valuable to Halstead and Morrison, I'm betting it's the regional director they just recruited, not the senior director who's been sleeping with her VP. You're threatening my job now. I'm stating facts. If you want to stay at the company, you'll have to figure out how to work with me being there. If you can't handle that, you should start looking elsewhere. I can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe you cheated on me for 6 months. So I guess we're both having revelations about who we really are. I hung up before she could respond. Then I turned off my phone, took a shower, and tried to figure out what the hell I was going to do next. Monday morning, I walked into Halstead and Morrison at 8:30 a.m., carrying a box of personal items from my Meridian office and a briefcase full of transition documents. Jennifer Wu met me in the lobby. Welcome to your first day, she said, handing me a permanent ID badge. How are you feeling? Like I'm starting my life over. Fair. She led me to the elevators. Elizabeth wants to meet with you at 9 to go over your first week. But first, let's get you set up in your office. The engineering division occupied the entire 24th floor, and my office was in the prime corner location that Elizabeth had shown me during my interview. Windows on 2 sides, enough space for a conference table and a sitting area, a door that actually closed. It felt surreal. Your team meeting is at 10, Jennifer continued, pulling up my calendar on the computer. Elizabeth will introduce you, and you'll have a chance to talk about your vision for the division. This afternoon, you have one-on-ones with each of your direct reports. Tomorrow, you're meeting with the CFO about budget. Wednesday, Jennifer. She stopped, looked at me. Does everyone know? I asked. About Sarah and me? She was quiet for a moment. Then, not everyone. But people talk, especially after Friday night. What are they saying? That there was some kind of confrontation at the party. That Sarah left early, upset. That you and David Morrison had words. She paused. People are curious. Great. For what it's worth, most people's reaction is that it's unprofessional that Sarah was involved with David in the first place, especially given the power dynamic. And what do they think about me being here? They think Elizabeth made a good hire, that you're qualified, that it's unfortunate about the personal situation, but that it shouldn't reflect on your professional capabilities. It was the best I could hope for, really. Thank you, I said, for being honest. Of course. She headed toward the door, then stopped. Michael? One more thing. Sarah submitted a transfer request this morning to the New York office. My stomach twisted. Already. Elizabeth hasn't approved it yet. She wants to talk to you first, but I thought you should know. After Jennifer left, I sat at my new desk in my new office, looking out at the city, trying to process what I felt. Relief, maybe, that Sarah was choosing to leave rather than forcing a confrontation. But also something else. Something that felt uncomfortably like regret. Because this was real now. Not just a plan or a revenge fantasy. Real consequences. Real changes. Real loss. My phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. How's the first day? Weird, I typed back. Sarah's trying to transfer to New York. Good. Let her go. You deserve better. Did I? I'd spent so long focused on what Sarah had done to me, on her betrayal, that I hadn't really thought about what kind of person I wanted to be on the other side of this. Someone bitter? Someone who let this define them? Or someone who learned from it and moved forward? I didn't have an answer yet. The team meeting at 10 went better than expected. Elizabeth introduced me, gave a brief overview of my background, then handed me the floor. I gave a shorter version of the speech from Friday night, my vision for the engineering division, my belief in collaborative problem-solving, my excitement about the work ahead. The team was receptive, asked good questions, seemed genuinely interested in working with me. No one mentioned Sarah. No one asked about my personal life. It was professional, normal, exactly what I needed. The one-on-ones in the afternoon were more challenging. Each direct report wanted to talk about their projects, their challenges, their concerns about the divisions. Direction. I had to stay focused, engaged, present, even though part of my mind was still processing everything that had happened over the weekend. By 5 o'clock, I was exhausted. Elizabeth knocked on my door as I was packing up. Got a minute? She asked. Of course. She came in, closed the door, sat in one of the chairs across from my desk. How was day one? Overwhelming, but good. I heard Sarah requested a transfer. Jennifer told me. I haven't approved it yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Why? Because you're my new regional director. You have input on organizational decisions that affect your division. And technically, if Sarah moves to New York, we lose talent from our marketing team here. You want to know if I think she should stay. I want to know if you can work with her being here. Could I? Seeing her in meetings, in the hallways, at company events, knowing what we'd been, knowing what she'd done. Honestly, I said, I don't know. Part of me thinks I should be professional enough to handle it. But part of me thinks having her here will just be a constant reminder of everything that went wrong. Elizabeth nodded. Can I ask you something personal? Sure. Do you regret taking this job? I thought about that. About Friday night. About the look on Sarah's face when she saw me at the podium. About David's anger in the hallway. About how much had changed in 72 hours. No, I said finally. I don't regret it. This job is exactly what I wanted. What I've been working toward. Sarah's betrayal doesn't change that. Good. Because I need to know you're here for the right reasons. Not just to prove something to your ex-wife, but because you actually want to build something. I do want to build something. The other stuff, that was just timing. Terrible timing, Elizabeth said with a slight smile. But sometimes terrible timing is just life giving you what you need when you need it, even if it's messy. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. For what it's worth, I'm going to approve Sarah's transfer. I think it's better for everyone if she has a fresh start somewhere else. You'll have space to establish yourself here without the constant tension. And she'll have space to rebuild her career without feeling like she's under scrutiny. When would she leave? January 1st. So about 6 weeks. She'll need to transition her projects, train her replacement. It'll be professional. Clean. Thank you. Don't thank me. This is business. We do what's best for the company. And right now, having you here without the personal drama is what's best. After she left, I sat in my new office as the sun set over the city, turning the sky orange and pink and purple. 6 weeks. Sarah would be gone in 6 weeks. And I'd be here, building a new career, a new life. Without her. It felt like an ending, but also, strangely, like a beginning. The next 6 weeks were a study in awkward professionalism. Sarah and I existed in the same building, but different worlds. Our paths crossed occasionally. In the elevator, at company-wide meetings, once in the parking garage. Each time, we nodded. Said nothing. Moved on. It was excruciating. Not because I wanted to talk to her, but because every encounter was a reminder of everything we weren't saying. All the anger and hurt and recrimination that would have to wait until lawyers were involved. I heard things through the office grapevine. That Sarah was throwing herself into work, determined to leave on a high note. That David had started dating someone from outside the company, very publicly, as if to prove his relationship with Sarah had been meaningless. That there were rumors about why Sarah was really transferring, ranging from better opportunity to pushed out because of the affair. I didn't engage with any of it, just focused on my work. And the work was good. I assembled my team, set strategic priorities for the infrastructure division, landed 2 major contracts in my first month. Elizabeth was impressed. The executive team was impressed. I was proving that hiring me had been the right decision, regardless of personal complications. My personal life was less impressive. I was living in the hotel room still, hadn't had the energy to look for an apartment. I saw Ryan and his family on weekends, which helped, but mostly I worked. Late nights at the office, early mornings, weekends at my desk. It was easier than thinking about what came next. Ryan confronted me about it over beer at his house one Saturday. "You're avoiding dealing with this," he said. "I'm working. There's a difference." "There really isn't. You're using work to avoid processing your divorce." "My divorce hasn't started yet. Sarah won't sign the papers." That was true. I'd filed the week after the party. Sarah had been served at work, which probably wasn't my finest moment, but I'd wanted it done. Official. She'd been refusing to sign ever since. Not fighting it exactly. Just delaying. Asking for more time to process. "Why won't she sign?" Ryan asked. "Because signing means it's real. Right now she can still pretend this is fixable." "Is it?" I looked at my brother. He'd been married to Emma for 12 years. 3 kids, a mortgage, the whole suburban dream. They fought sometimes. I'd heard them. But there was never any doubt they loved each other. That they were in it together. "No," I said. "It's not fixable. She destroyed something that can't be rebuilt." "Do you still love her?" I thought about that. About Sarah as she'd been when we met. Passionate, brilliant, full of ideas about changing the world. About our wedding day, her smile as she said her vows. About 1,000 small moments. Making dinner together, reading the Sunday paper, walking through the city on autumn evenings. About the woman she'd become. Or maybe always been, and I just refused to see it. "I love who I thought she was," I said finally. "But that person doesn't exist. Maybe never did." "That's not true. People are complicated. She's not just the affair. She's also all those other moments you had together. Those moments were lies. Were they? Or were they real? And then she made a terrible choice that doesn't erase everything else." I wanted to argue. To insist that Sarah's betrayal invalidated everything. That you couldn't cheat on someone and still have the good memories count. But I couldn't quite make myself believe it. "I don't know," I admitted. "I don't know how to hold both things at once. That I loved her and that she hurt me. That we had something good and that she destroyed it." "Maybe that's what forgiveness is," Ryan said. "Not erasing what happened. Just acknowledging that people are messy and relationships are complicated and sometimes good people do shitty things." "Are you saying I should forgive her?" "I'm saying you should stop letting her live rent-free in your head. You're giving her so much power over you, over how you feel, how you spend your time, whether you can be happy. Let it go." "I can't just let it go. Not all at once. But you can start. Little by little. By finding an apartment. By going on a date. By thinking about your future instead of your past." He wasn't wrong. I'd been so focused on the betrayal, on making Sarah face consequences, that I'd forgotten to think about what I actually wanted. Who I wanted to become. "I'll think about it," I said. "Good. Because Emma and I are worried about you." You're turning into one of those workaholic guys who has a great career and no life. I have a life. You have work in a hotel room. That's not a life, that's a waiting room. I found an apartment the following week. Nothing fancy. A one-bedroom in a building near the river, with hardwood floors and big windows and a kitchen I'd actually want to cook in. It was available immediately, which felt like a sign. Moving in was strange. I'd taken almost nothing from the house I'd shared with Sarah, just clothes, books, a few personal items. Everything else would get sorted out in the divorce settlement. So my new apartment was sparse. Empty. A mattress on the floor for the first week because I hadn't bought furniture yet. Boxes of belongings that I hadn't unpacked because I couldn't quite face figuring out where they should go. But it was mine. Not a hotel room. Not a temporary situation. Mine. I called Sarah to tell her I'd moved out. You took an apartment? Her voice was flat. Resigned. I did. So this is really happening. It's been happening, Sarah. I filed for divorce 5 weeks ago. I know. I keep hoping you'll change your mind. I won't. Silence on the line. Can I ask you something? She said finally. What? Do you hate me? Did I? I'd been angry. Furious, even. I'd planned an elaborate revenge, executed it, watched her world crumble. But hate? No, I said honestly. I don't hate you. I'm angry. I feel betrayed. But I don't hate you. That's something, I guess. Sarah, you need to sign the papers. Stop dragging this out. I will. After New Year's. Once I'm in New York and everything's settled. Why then? Because I need a clean break. From all of this. From the marriage, from David, from Seattle. I need to start over. That's what I'm trying to do too. I know. And I'm sorry I made that so hard. I'm sorry for all of it. She'd apologized before. Multiple times. But this felt different. Less defensive. More genuine. I know you are, I said. Are you going to be okay? Eventually. Eventually. We hung up shortly after. It wasn't closure exactly, but it was something. An acknowledgement that we were both in pain, both trying to find our way forward. Maybe that was enough. Sarah's last day at Halstead & Morrison was December 30th. The company threw her a small goodbye party in the afternoon. Just the marketing team, some colleagues from other divisions. Elizabeth made an appearance, said nice things about Sarah's contributions. It was professional, cordial. No one mentioned why she was really leaving. I didn't go, but I watched from my office window as people filtered into the conference room where the party was happening. Watched them leave an hour later, Sarah hugging various colleagues, smiling that same smile she'd worn at the holiday party 7 weeks ago. Except now it looked tired. Forced. Around 5 o'clock, I saw her leave the building. She was carrying a box of personal items, walking alone toward the parking garage. She paused at the building entrance, looked back up at the tower like she was memorizing it. Then she got in her car and drove away. Just like that, she was gone from my daily life. I felt relief, mostly, that the 6 weeks of awkward proximity were over, that I could finally relax at work without wondering if I'd run into her. But also a strange hollowness. Because for 11 years, Sarah had been the most important person in my life. Even these last few months of anger and betrayal, she'd still been central. Everything I did was in relation to her, gathering evidence, planning confrontation, executing revenge. Now what? I sat at my desk until 7, not really working, just thinking. My phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. How are you doing? Sarah's gone, I typed back. New York as of tomorrow. How do you feel? Honestly, empty. That's normal. It'll get better. Would it? New Year's Eve, I spent alone in my apartment. I'd been invited to Ryan's house. To a party some colleagues were throwing. But I couldn't face it. Couldn't face making small talk and pretending to be excited about new beginnings when I felt like I was still stuck in the ending. At 11:30, I poured myself a whiskey and stood at my window, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Sarah was probably at some New Year's party in New York, meeting new colleagues, starting her new life. Somewhere out there, David was probably with his new girlfriend, trying to prove he'd moved on. And here I was, alone, thinking about consequences and choices and the strange path that had led me to this moment. My phone rang at 11:58. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me. Hello. Michael. It's Sarah. My heart jumped. Sarah. I know I shouldn't be calling, but it's almost midnight, and I wanted to hear your voice. Why? Because for 11 years, you were the person I talked to at midnight on New Year's. And even though everything's different now, I couldn't quite let that go. I could hear music in the background. Voices. She was at a party. Are you drunk? I asked. A little. But that's not why I called. She paused. I signed the papers. I'm mailing them tomorrow. I just thought you should know. Thank you. I'm sorry, Michael. I know I've said it before, but I need to say it again. I'm sorry for what I did. For lying to you. For not being brave enough to end things before I started something with David. For all of it. I know. Do you? Because I need you to know that it wasn't about you. You didn't do anything wrong. You were a good husband. I was unhappy, and I made terrible choices instead of dealing with it. Why were you unhappy? It was a question I'd never asked. I'd been too angry to ask. But now, with distance and time and the knowledge that it was really over, I found I wanted to know. I don't know, Sarah said softly. That's the truth. I don't know. I had everything I thought I wanted. Good marriage, good career, good life. But something felt missing, empty. And instead of figuring out what that was, I looked for it in someone else. Did you find it? With David? No. It was just a distraction. A way to feel alive without having to do the hard work of figuring out who I really am. In the background, I heard people counting down. 10, 9, 8. It's almost midnight, I said. I know. Happy New Year, Michael. Happy New Year, Sarah. We hung up as the city erupted in celebration. Fireworks over the water. People cheering. Car horns honking. I stood at my window, alone in my empty apartment, holding my phone, and felt something shift. Not healing. Not forgiveness. Not even acceptance, really. Just a slight loosening of the knot in my chest. A small opening of possibility. Maybe Ryan was right. Maybe I could let this go. Not all at once. But slowly. One day at a time. Maybe I could start thinking about what I wanted to build instead of what I'd lost. June in Seattle is magic. The rain finally stops. The sun comes out. The whole city seems to exhale, shaking off the gray winter and emerging into light. I was sitting at an outdoor cafe near Pike Place Market on a Saturday afternoon, reading the newspaper, drinking coffee that was too expensive but absolutely worth it. Michael Reynolds? I looked up. A woman was standing next to my table, maybe 40, with auburn hair and an open, friendly face. Yes. I'm so sorry to bother you. But I heard you speak at the Urban Infrastructure Conference last month. Your presentation on sustainable bridge design was fascinating. Thank you, I said, genuinely pleased. That conference had been a big deal. My first major speaking engagement since joining Halstead and Morrison. I'm Amy Chun. I'm an architect at Prescott Associates. We're working on a project that could really benefit from your expertise. Would you be willing to grab coffee sometime and talk about a potential collaboration? She handed me her card. I took it, noting that she wasn't wearing a wedding ring and her smile was perhaps slightly more than professionally interested. I'd like that, I said. Great. She smiled wider. I'll email you early next week. Enjoy your afternoon. After she left, I sat there, holding her card, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. Not with her necessarily. I didn't even know if she was actually interested or just being professional. But the fact that I'd noticed, that I'd engaged, that I hadn't shut down completely, that felt significant. My phone buzzed. A text from Elizabeth. Great work on the Portland project. Executive team was impressed. Keep it up. Another text from Ryan. Still coming for dinner tomorrow? Emma's making your favorite. I responded to both. Then I finished my coffee, paid my tab, and walked through the market, enjoying the summer day. Life wasn't perfect. I still thought about Sarah sometimes. Still felt the occasional pang of loss. Still had days when I was angry about what she'd done. But mostly, I was okay. Better than okay, really. I had a job I loved. A division I was building. Colleagues who respected me. A new apartment that was finally starting to feel like home. Relationships with my brother and his family that were closer than they'd been in years. I was rebuilding. Not the life I'd had, but something new. Something that was entirely mine. That evening, I got an email. From Sarah. Subject line, closure. I almost deleted it without reading. But curiosity won. Michael, I hope you're doing well. I know we haven't spoken since New Year's. I've been trying to give you space. But I wanted you to know that the divorce papers are finalized. It's official as of today. I also wanted to tell you that I'm seeing a therapist. Dealing with a lot of things I should have dealt with years ago. It doesn't excuse what I did. but I'm trying to understand it. To be better. I heard through colleagues that you're doing amazing work at H&M, that the engineering division is thriving. I'm genuinely happy for you. I won't contact you again unless you want me to. But I needed to say this. Thank you. For 11 years of mostly good memories. For being a better partner than I deserved. For giving me consequences I needed, even though I hated you for it at the time. You were right. That night at the party. I made my choices. Now I'm living with them. But I'm also learning from them. Trying to become someone I can be proud of. I hope you find happiness, Michael. Real happiness. You deserve it. Sarah. I read it 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and went for a walk along the water. The sun was setting, turning the sky orange and pink, reflecting off the buildings downtown. The same buildings I'd looked at from that hotel ballroom 7 months ago, standing at a podium, watching my wife's face as her world shifted. That moment had changed everything. Had ended my marriage and started my new career. Had forced me to confront truths I'd been avoiding and become someone stronger, clearer, more certain of who I was. I didn't regret it, but I also didn't need to hold on to the anger anymore. When I got home, I responded to Sarah's email. Sarah, thank you for reaching out. I'm glad you're getting help. I hope therapy gives you what you need. I'm doing well. The work at H&M is challenging but rewarding. I'm building something I'm proud of. You're right that we had mostly good memories. I'm trying to hold on to those instead of just focusing on how it ended. It's hard, but I'm getting there. I don't know if we'll ever be friends. But I don't need to be angry anymore either. You made mistakes. I made mistakes. We both did the best we could until we couldn't anymore. I wish you well in New York. I hope you find whatever you were looking for. Michael. I hit send before I could second guess it. Then I poured myself a drink, put on some music, and started unpacking the last few boxes I'd been avoiding since moving in. Because Ryan was right. This wasn't a waiting room anymore. This was my life. And it was time to start living it.